Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive.
Yeah, it's great to be back.
Today we're going to be tackling something that I think is probably on a lot of people's minds these days.
Definitely.
And that's, how do we build wealth? How do we find that financial security
Right.
when it feels like the world is kind of working against us a little bit?
It's true. It's like the rules of the game are constantly changing.
Exactly.
And the old playbooks they don't work the same way they used to.
It's like wages are stuck in a time warp,
Yeah.
while the cost of everything around us just keeps going up.
Especially housing.
Housing especially, yeah. Makes you wonder, is the American dream, is it even achievable anymore?
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because there's data out there that shows
Oh, really?
that millennials are on track to be the first generation in recent history to actually be less wealthy than their parents.
Wow, that's kind of a scary thought.
It is a sobering thought.
Yeah.
It is a sobering thought, and it really, begs the question of what do we need to do differently?
To adapt to this new reality.
Okay, so that's what we're going to be digging into today.
That's right.
And, the good news is we've got some really interesting insights, I think, from a financial expert who claims to have the answers to, and I'm just going to quote this directly, unfuck your future. Yeah.
It's a bold statement.
It is a bold statement.
But I think it's one that really captures people's attention.
Definitely. I mean, this is not your, typical financial advice.
Well,
We're not talking about, save 10% of your paycheck and invest in index funds.
Right. This is about challenging those traditional assumptions,
Sure.
rethinking the whole approach to things like real estate savings, long-term investment.
And maybe even taking some calculated risks.
Exactly.
Maybe venturing into the world of cryptocurrency.
That's right.
So are you ready to kind of dive in and see what this expert has to say?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay, all right. So let's start with, I guess, the core problem that we're facing right now.
It's something that I think a lot of people feel, but it's helpful to kind of lay it out there explicitly.
Right.
So wages have been largely stagnant for decades.
Decades.
And yeah, while the cost of living has just exploded,
Skyrocketed, yeah.
and millennials especially, they're the ones who are really feeling this squeeze right now.
They're bearing the brunt of it.
Yeah, and the expert uses this really great example to kind of put this in perspective.
Okay.
Imagine trying to buy a house in London a generation or two ago.
Okay.
It might have cost you something like 3.5 times your annual salary.
Okay.
Today, you're looking at 8 to 10 times your annual salary
Wow.
to buy a comparable house in London.
Yeah, that's a massive difference.
It's a huge difference.
It's a huge difference, and it really highlights how much harder it is to get ahead now
Exactly.
than it was for previous generations.
And it's not just housing, right? It's everything.
It's everything. It's food, it's
And
healthcare.
education.
That's education.
All of these things that are considered essential.
Yeah, the cost of living has just gone up across the board.
Yeah. So, and even when we look at the traditional investments, right?
Right.
The stocks, the bonds, the things that, we're always told like, oh, this is the safe bet. This is how you build wealth over time.
Right. Put your money in the market and let it grow.
Exactly.
Long term, you'll be fine.
They're not even keeping pace with inflation.
Right. And that's a really important point because, we talked about the S&P 500 averaging around 11% growth per year.
Right.
But when you factor in inflation and something called the debasement of currency.
The what?
Debasement of currency, which is essentially the decreasing value of money over time.
Oh, okay.
Those gains are significantly eroded.
So you're basically losing money even when you think you're gaining it.
In a sense, yes, because your money is buying less over time.
Gotcha. Okay, so that's pretty depressing.
It can be disheartening.
Yeah.
It can be disheartening, but I think it's important to understand the reality of the situation so we can come up with solutions.
Okay, so then what are we supposed to do right?
Right.
If the old playbook isn't working, what's the new game plan?
That's the million-dollar question.
Literally.
Literally, yeah. And thankfully, this expert has some pretty specific advice.
Okay.
And it all starts with skill development.
What?
Specifically in your 20s.
Your 20s.
Your 20s. This is the time to go all in on becoming an expert in something.
Anything.
Anything, really. The expert even says compete with yourself day and night.
Wow, that's intense.
It is intense. It's about pushing yourself to be the best you can be in your chosen field.
So it doesn't matter what the skill is as long as you become incredibly good at it.
That's the idea. They believe that having that deep expertise in something will set you apart in the job market.
Okay, so master one skill. But wait, there's more, right?
There's more because while you're laser focused on mastering that one skill, you also need to be a generalist in everything else.
Okay.
It's like cross-training for your brain, constantly acquiring new knowledge. even if it doesn't seem directly related to your main area of expertise.
I see. So it's kind of like having a superpower, but then also having like a utility belt full of other tools that you can use.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's about being adaptable and having a wide range of knowledge to navigate the complexities of the modern economy.
Okay. So what does that look like in practice?
Well, the expert calls it reverse engineering your dream.
Okay. I like that.
So picture your ideal life 5 years from now.
Okay.
Really envision it, and then work backward and figure out what skills you need to make that dream a reality.
So like, what am I missing right now
Exactly.
that I would need to have in 5 years to make that dream happen?
Yes, and then go get those skills.
Okay.
So let's say you want to run your own window cleaning business.
Okay.
Sounds simple, right?
Yeah.
But you'll need management skills,
Nice.
accounting, knowledge marketing know-how.
Yeah. There's a lot more to it than just cleaning windows.
Exactly.
Okay.
And this applies to any dream really want to be a writer. Learn about editing, publishing, marketing your work. Want to be a chef, go beyond cooking. Learn about restaurant management, food costing, even social media marketing.
So basically, no time for Netflix in your 20s.
Well, the expert puts it a little more bluntly.
Okay. How do they put it?
Their take on work-life balance in your 20s is, and I quote, "fuck it."
Okay. So the message is clear.
The message is clear.
Your 20s are for hustling, learning, building that solid foundation
That's right.
for your future.
Exactly.
All right. So we've got the foundation in place.
We've got the foundation.
But what happens next?
That's where things get even more interesting.
I like where this is going.
I think you will.
Welcome back. So, last time we were talking about, building wealth in this new economic reality.
Right?
And we left off with, you're in your 20s, you're mastering that skill, you're building that foundation.
You're laying the groundwork.
Yeah. But what about when you get into your 30s?
Right.
What does this expert suggest for that decade of life?
Well, this is where the expert's advice starts to get really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, like interesting.
And they start to really challenge the conventional wisdom about investing.
Okay.
They argue that relying solely on those traditional investments like stocks and bonds is simply too slow in today's economic climate.
Wait, are they saying that those classic, reliable investments aren't good enough anymore?
Not necessarily not good enough, but remember how we talked about the S&P 500 averaging around 11% growth per year?
Right.
Well, they argue that that's simply not enough to outpace inflation and that debasement of currency that we talked about earlier.
Okay, yeah, the whole, your money's gradually losing its purchasing power over time.
Exactly.
So they're saying even if you're doing all the right things, the quote-unquote right things,
Right.
you're still kind of falling behind.
Yeah, you're treading water at best.
So what's the alternative then?
Well, they suggest looking for opportunities with potentially higher returns.
Okay, higher returns, got it.
And one area they specifically recommend is tech stocks.
Tech stocks.
Well-
Okay, so moving away from the slow and steady and more into the growth potential.
Exactly, growth potential and innovation.
Okay, but I have to ask, is this where cryptocurrency enters the picture?
You read my mind.
I know it.
Cryptocurrency is a key part of this expert's wealth building strategy, particularly in your 30s.
Okay, now I know crypto has a bit of a reputation, right?
It does.
For being volatile, risky. A lot of people are hesitant to even dip their toes into that water.
For good reason, there are risks involved.
So how does this expert address those concerns?
They acknowledge the risks, but they're all about calculated risk, not reckless gambling.
Okay.
And they believe that crypto, especially in the long term, has the potential for significantly higher returns.
Compared to those traditional investments.
Exactly. Take Bitcoin, for example.
Bitcoin, the OG cryptocurrency.
Right. Since 2011, even with all of its ups and downs, Bitcoin has averaged 145% annual growth.
145%.
Yeah.
Wow, that's hard to ignore, even with the risk.
It is hard to ignore, but I think it's important to remember that past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
Of course, of course.
But it does give you an idea of the potential.
Okay, so I'm starting to see the appeal here, but I have to admit, the whole world of crypto still feels kind of like the Wild West to me.
I understand that.
Full of hype scams,
Yeah.
It's hard to know what's real, what's not.
Right. And there's a lot of noise out there.
Yeah. So can we break it down a little bit?
Sure.
What is cryptocurrency really, and why does this expert believe it has such game-changing potential?
Okay, so I think what often gets lost in all the hype is that cryptocurrency isn't just about money.
Okay.
At its core, it's a technology, specifically blockchain technology.
Blockchain.
Blockchain, yeah. And this technology addresses some fundamental problems of trust and scarcity in the digital world.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about this blockchain technology because it does sound a little bit complicated.
It can be, but this expert has a great analogy that makes it easier to understand.
Okay, I love analogies.
So think of the current banking system,
Okay.
like a suitcase with a single coin inside.
Okay, one coin in a suitcase.
And now imagine that one coin has been lent out to 30 different people.
Okay, so one coin representing limited resources.
Exactly. And that's essentially what fractional reserve banking is. And it creates a system that's inherently vulnerable and unstable.
This is like one coin being stretched way too thin.
Exactly. Now imagine a different system.
Okay.
Instead of a single suitcase, we have a public ledger
Okay.
that's constantly being verified by thousands of computers.
Thousands of computers.
This ledger is called the blockchain,
Okay.
and it tracks every transaction in a transparent and secure way.
So it's like a super secure and transparent accounting system for digital transactions.
You got it. And this has huge implications that go way beyond just money.
Okay, like what?
Well, blockchain technology can be used for everything from verifying contracts and tracking the authenticity of art to even managing digital identities.
It sounds like blockchain is the real game changer here.
It is.
And cryptocurrency is just one application of it.
Exactly. Cryptocurrency is the most well-known application of blockchain, but it's really just the tip of the iceberg.
Okay, so this expert sees blockchain as this disruptive innovation that you want to get in on early before it becomes, dominated by big institutions and potentially less accessible.
That's exactly right.
Okay, so if someone listening is convinced and wants to kind of dip their toes into the crypto waters,
Yeah.
where should they start?
Well, this expert recommends sticking with the most established and widely recognized cryptocurrencies,
Like what?
like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana.
Okay, so no chasing those obscure meme coins that pop up every day.
No, this expert is all about the long game, not chasing quick profits.
Okay, so the long game with crypto, what does that look like?
Well, they emphasize the importance of holding your investments long-term, weathering the inevitable dips in the market.
Because there will be dips.
Oh, there will be dips. They even warn to expect drops of 70 to 80% at times.
70 to 80%.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay, so you need to have a strong stomach.
But definitely not for the faint of heart. No, but most importantly, they say, don't lose your tokens.
Don't lose your tokens. What does that mean?
Well, it means make sure your investments are secure.
Okay.
Use reputable exchanges and wallets, and be very careful about scams and phishing attempts.
Because that's a real threat in the crypto world.
It is a real threat, and it's something that everyone needs to be aware of.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, from the challenges of traditional investments to the potential of cryptocurrency, but I want to circle back to something this expert said that really resonated with me.
Okay,
It's not just about accumulating wealth for the sake of wealth, right?
that's right. It's about achieving a certain quality of life, a freedom to pursue your passions, not just chasing dollars.
So aligning your financial goals with your values and your vision for your life.
Precisely, they challenge us to not let our jobs define us, to seek out experiences that truly matter, and to find fulfillment outside the constant pursuit of money.
Which can be hard in today's world.
It can be very hard, but it's important to remember that money is a tool. It's a means to an end, not the end itself.
Right, and this expert even shared a personal anecdote about finding more fulfillment in off-roading adventures through Zambia than chasing another dollar.
Now that's an image.
Right. I'd love to hear more about that.
Me too. It sounds like an incredible experience.
Yeah, so it's a good reminder that money can certainly open doors,
It can.
but it's not the only path to a fulfilling life.
Absolutely. The key is to be creative, resourceful, and prioritize what brings you joy.
It's about designing a life that reflects your values,
Yes.
your passions.
Exactly.
Okay, so how do we bring all of this together?
Well, that's where we're going to uncover the final phase of this expert's unconventional plan.
In the last part of our deep dive.
Stay tuned.
Okay, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive. We've talked about mastering a skill in your 20s, taking calculated risks with investments like crypto in your 30s, but what comes next? What's the final piece of the puzzle?
Well, this is where the expert gets really philosophical and shifts the focus from specific tactics to a broader mindset, one that's essential for navigating a world that's constantly changing and full of uncertainties.
Okay, so moving beyond the how-to and into the how-to-be.
Exactly. They argue that in a world where knowledge is becoming increasingly accessible to everyone, what truly sets people apart is their ability to adapt, to learn continuously, and to embrace new opportunities, even if they involve a bit of risk.
So you're saying it's not enough to just have a skill set.
Right. It's about constantly evolving and acquiring new skills as the world changes around you.
Got it. So how do we do that?
Well, remember how we talked about the democratization of knowledge?
Yeah.
Well, this expert takes it a step further and asks, if everyone has access to the same information, what will differentiate those who thrive from those who get left behind?
That's a good question. So what's the answer?
Well, according to this expert, it comes down to cultivating certain essential qualities.
Like,
First, adaptability. You need to be able to pivot, to shift gears quickly as circumstances change. Second, a relentless hunger for knowledge. Never stop learning, never stop exploring new ideas. And third, a willingness to embrace calculated risks. Don't let fear paralyze you. Be open to opportunities that might seem a bit scary at first.
so basically they're advocating for a growth mindset, a belief that you can always learn and evolve no matter what life throws your way.
Exactly. And it's not just about professional success, it's about personal growth and fulfillment as well. It's about crafting a life that aligns with your values and brings you joy, even amidst the uncertainty of a constantly changing world.
And that brings us back to something we touched on earlier. True wealth isn't just about the numbers in your bank account. It's about living a life that feels meaningful and fulfilling.
Absolutely. Remember that story about the expert finding more fulfillment in off-roading adventures through Zambia than chasing another dollar?
Yeah.
That's a powerful example of how aligning your financial goals with your values can lead to a truly rich and rewarding life in every sense of the word.
Okay, so to wrap this all up for our listeners, what are some key takeaways they can apply to their own lives?
I think the most important takeaway is that the future might be uncertain, but it's also full of potential. And it's up to each of us to embrace that potential by cultivating adaptability, a thirst for knowledge, and a willingness to step outside of our comfort zones.
So don't be afraid to take some risks.
Calculated risks.
Calculated risks, of course, but don't let fear hold you back from pursuing your dreams.
Exactly. And remember, true wealth is about more than just a fat bank account. It's about living a life that is meaningful, fulfilling, and aligned with your values. It's about having the freedom to pursue your passions and create a life that truly reflects who you are.
That's a great message to end on. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a few questions to ponder. What are your passions? How can you leverage your unique skills and talents in a world that's constantly being reshaped by technology? And most importantly, what steps can you take today to start building a life that aligns with your values and brings you a deep sense of fulfillment?
Those are great questions, and I encourage everyone listening to really take some time to reflect on them, that the future is yours to create.
That's a wrap on this deep dive.
Yeah.
We hope you've gained some valuable insights and are feeling inspired to take control of your financial future and design a life that truly reflects your dreams and aspirations.
Until next time, remember that the best investment you can ever make is in yourself.